Our early dates to Greeter Falls, and have come here for several different baby moons and things like that. Stayed out here, so love this area, and it holds a special place in my heart. So what I want to do, I don't know, what is that? Okay, you got that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the statewide level, and I'm going to kind of drill in to the Grundy County specific level, and try to do all that in 10 minutes and not bore you too much. So let's see how we go. What you see here are statewide economic impact numbers. So when we talk economic impact, there are probably three different ways to do it, but we're going to do one of them. There's direct, indirect, induced. But we're going to talk about direct, which is essentially when any financial transaction is made between a visitor and an establishment, right? So a direct purchase would be like renting a room here, eating at one of your restaurants, going to the coffee shop, paying something at a shopping retail experience, something like that. If there was an attraction that you were paying for, all those things where cash or credit card might be passed between a visitor and a business is what direct impact would be. So at the state level, last year, 2023, there's $30 billion of spend. You're like, well, that's crazy. That's a number none of us can conceptualize. Elon Musk could, but that's about it, right? We don't have that kind of money. But that, for perspective, represents about 15% of all taxable sales in Tennessee came from visitor spending. Okay, there was $196 billion of taxable sales spent in this state last year, and 30 billion of it we believe is from people who came from 50 miles or more away from wherever they were spending that money. Does that make sense? That could be a day visitor, it could be an overnight visitor, but that's what we see. That represents about $84 million per day of spending going on in Tennessee from visitors. So another way to think about this is that if it were not for visitors, our communities would have 15% less spending happening in them on any given year. And some communities are more or less than that, right? Some are more successfully capturing visitor spend, and some are still working to do that. So that's the statewide view on that perspective. Again, statewide numbers, there are about 360,000 jobs in the leisure and hospitality super sector. But we think that there are about 191,000 jobs across multiple sectors in the state that would not exist if not for the work of tourism and leisure and hospitality and travel in our state. So we also had about $750 million of international spend. So that's people coming from places like England, and we've opened up new flights. We're seeing an influx of that, of people coming to Tennessee. We hope to hit during the final years of this administration, we hope to get that number to $1 billion. That's the one area pre-COVID that we're still trying to get back to because we lost a Canadian flight to Memphis. And so we're still trying to push back to, I think, 960 is our number that we need to hit to be fully recovered on the international side. But we're excited about those opportunities. I don't know if you've seen Iceland and Dublin and some of the flights that are coming now. It really opens up all of Europe now to come and explore places like this. And there's a rich history in these communities of European settlers, right? And so there's an opportunity for Europeans to come and enjoy Tennessee and specifically the Monteagle and Grundy County area. So as a whole, when you think about economic impact, if it were not for visitation and visitors to communities, residents in those communities at a statewide level, the average is that the average Tennessean household would have to pay $1,161 a year more in taxes to kind of fill the gap at the state and local level of the taxes that are needed to operate our government. So when you think about education, when you think about infrastructure, when you think about health services, TennCare, all those types of things where government spending is going into making Tennesseans' lives better, it would take about $1,000 a year more from each household to be able to fill the gap of what visitors are spending. And certainly some of these visitors are from in-state, but also some are, in a large portion, 78% come from outside of Tennessee because we're kind of a weird state. We are tied, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but we're tied for the most borders in America. Border states, we have 8. Missouri's the only other one that has 8. And so we're long, we're narrow, we have a lot of through traffic, east, west, north, and south, and we're hoping to capture as much of that as possible. When we think about the impact, the most impactful visitor to a community is an overnight visitor. And I mean, it's probably inherent, but can somebody tell me why? Why would an overnight visitor be more valuable than a day visitor?
They spend more.
Why do they spend more? Lodging. It's the single biggest expenditure that somebody's going to make on their trip, right? Unless it's somewhere like Disney, and then maybe there are other ones. But in general, the biggest expenditure is going to be the overnight accommodations. And with that, there's this kind of massive opportunity where state and local governments benefit substantially from an overnight visitor, because not only do you have a sales tax assessed on it, but at a statewide level, the average occupancy tax assessment on a hotel motel tax, if you've heard of any of those, is 5%. So not only do we have sales tax, we also have lodging taxes stacked on top of that. And lodging taxes are predominantly designated at the local level for a particular use. So they're not split like sales taxes are between education and other government funding. They are established for particular reasons, oftentimes tourism, but oftentimes things like debt service and other stuff. So we're really excited about this. You know, the average daily rate in Tennessee is $170. Certainly that's buoyed by two things. It's buoyed by Nashville, right? Rates up there are expensive in Nashville. This includes both hotel and short-term rentals, and this community has a large portion of short-term rentals. So you think about a 2, 3, 4 bedroom unit driving up the cost of the average daily, or the value of the average daily rate across the state. So what we see in Tennessee is that the average overnight visitor, their average trip spending is $329. Average day visitor is $115. So you can kind of see the difference there. The majority of that being the cost of the room. But they also stay longer, they eat more, they buy more. So our effort is really to drive overnight visitors, both because they spend more, but also because they replenish the pot of money that's often used for tourism, right? They're the hotel motel taxes that are used to support that. So drilling into Grundy County at the economic impact level, for 2023, year over year, this county was up 16.88, so almost 17% year over year in economic impact. That's incredible. I want to go ahead and say that. That beat the state average by almost 3 times the state average. We were about a 6% growth year over year. So fantastic job. You can see here. It doesn't work on the TV. Okay, so you've got lodging made up 39% of the expenditures in your community, which is fantastic because, like we said, hotel motel taxes are assessed on lodging. So if this is 7%, that's not really great for you. The next highest category would be transportation, which makes sense because you're also interstate adjacent, right? So you're going to have gas sales. You're going to have people who may not spend very long in your community, but you do benefit from them being in your community. Excellent. And then you have some amusement and rec, which is 12% of your expenditures. Retail is 6%. And food and beverage is 17%. So overall, pretty solid economy. And if I had to pick an area to be the biggest, lodging is always the best one because you know you're keeping the people here. On the left, if you can see it, I don't know if this thing's like a transformer. More than meets the eye. Okay, so all right. On the left here, you've got the visitor count. So last year we set up a pattern to go back and look. We worked with Tourism Economics, who does our financial calculations, and we said, okay, well, if you're giving us our economic impact numbers, can you also help us understand for the 95 counties and for the state what visitor volume led to those dollars? And so they used a wide variety of inputs, cell phone data, credit card data, a bunch of different things to come up with what's it look like. And this, I would say, is an abnormal pattern. I see a lot of communities still trying to recover to 2019 on both day and overnight. While the value of a visitor might have increased, the actual number of visitors is not necessarily increased in every community. Does that make sense? And you could probably think about that just even from an inflation standpoint, right? Like, it costs more to travel, so you could still be doing well on the economic impact side and not have more bodies, but you've managed to do both. And so again, I want to just highlight that that's abnormal in a good way, and well done here. So to the right, you have the chart on state and local tax collections. There's a little bit of a misnomer because we had them adjust something last year, so this gap is more substantial than it should look like across the board. But this is real, and so what you've seen is state and local taxes grow year over year. for an average savings for your households in your community of $330, which is pretty substantial when you consider everything that's at play there. I mean, there are communities that have there are distressed communities in our state that have that as like a $50 number. Right? So what tourism is doing for this community is fantastic, and so just again love that, and don't. Again, Sevier County is the one that really drives up the household savings because nobody lives there and everybody goes there. So, don't feel like 330 is a really good number. So, to break this down, here are your more specific numbers. You had a 20% year-over-year change in lodging, 18% in food, 19% in retail, 19% in recreation, and 9% in transport. So, and your employment's up almost 10% in this area. So what we believe is there are 115 jobs in this community that would not exist if not for tourism, leisure, and hospitality. We like to think that all of these types of numbers are probably conservative and low. So if maybe you feel differently on that one way or another, but we really try to be conservative in our estimations and not take credit for more than what's due. All right, so I did want to just cover, let's see what she's got in here for me. Okay. Oh, no, we're going to do this later. Switch me. We'll do that part later. I'm going to try to do the rest in like a couple minutes. Okay, so economic impact is something we do every year, and we launch it, we release it in September, and so it's 9 months old when we release it, and so it's pretty much useless other than just as a thing to put on the shelf and say, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, it's 3 months of my job and it's totally useless. So it's great. But what we've spun up next to it is a partnership with the Department of Revenue and with the Comptroller's Office. And so we get data from both Comptroller more on like an annual basis, and then Department of Revenue on a monthly basis. We just have a 2-month lag. And so what we're able to do with Department of Revenue is we're able to track leisure and hospitality sales tax collections in your community, in every community, down to the city level, your situs level. And it allows us to kind of get a monitoring of the state of an economy through that time. So what we have here is comptroller data, and it goes through fiscal 23. I said we get it 1 year at a time. We usually get it in April for the preceding fiscal year. This is the county occupancy tax collections through fiscal 23. And you can see it tracks really closely with the visitor chart that I showed you earlier in terms of the incredible growth that you've seen. I mean, back in 2018, occupancy hotel motel taxes were worth about $90,000 a year, dipped some in 19 and 20. But somebody said 5 years ago, you started kind of focusing on tourism?
About 2000, well, since 2012, but 2015.
Really?
I can remember the first year was $5,000 of occupancy tax. So yeah, it's a long ways.
Well, this is our chance to kind of praise Mayor Brady in this. This is you would know the fiscal 24 number. I don't know the fiscal 24 number, but I believe it's higher than this, is it not?
It is.
Substantially.
Yeah, it's depending on which month it's in the threes.
Yeah. Okay. So last year, probably February of 20. Well, this is 24, right? February 23. I think we were on a phone call, and I had a question where I said, Mayor Brady, something's not making sense to me. Mm-hmm. And what we came to find out is that the Department of Revenue had not, and I think, well, Silas was right. Can you change it? It didn't. Now it is freaking out.
I suspected.
Oh, it's like got multiple open.
Hold on, I got you.
Maybe select it. There we go. Okay, that works. Thank you. All right. So what we have here now are the collections for all the cities and the county occupancy tax stacked on top of each other. Right? And what we have it broken down as is both the traditional lodging and the short-term rental. In July of 2021, the Department of Revenue started collecting on your behalf the short-term rental booking, sales tax and occupancy taxes from the major marketplaces. So if you think about the Airbnb of the world, they were collecting it on your behalf. But what together we found was that the Department of Revenue had an incorrect record for Grundy County. They did not have that the county collected in Tracy City and Altamont. So all that was being collected at that time was the city portion of the tax and not the county portion. And so I think it was about August, September of 23 that Department of Revenue finally kind of got their numbers right. We worked with them, we showed them where it was wrong. And we value that at around $100,000 a year in just what should have been collected. People were already there. It didn't even need new bodies. It was just it was a clerical error, honestly. And so you're even in the past, years, there should have been more money here and more money here than there even was. And so the stark increase should have been even more apparent. But as I understand, fiscal 24, you would have had probably about $100,000 more just from the collections on the online booked short-term rentals. So that's pretty fantastic. And as a whole, I mean, you're talking about the whole community in fiscal 23 was pushing $500,000 in occupancy tax collections across your cities and your county, which is pretty phenomenal. So, any questions about that? That really kicked off a lot of education statewide for us on helping other communities as well. You were the first, and then we found probably a dozen other communities that had incorrect records. So not only did it affect you, but it had a trickle effect for other communities as well. So this is just the county portion, again, through fiscal 23, but you can kind of see. I think the important takeaway here is just the substantial impact that short-term rental has for you. While you don't yet have flagship hotels and things like that in your community, you have some pretty substantial operations, including Mr. Gray and others that are operating in this facility that are driving a lot of visitation and revenue. So what we have here, going to the sales tax data, this is representative of the state's portion of sales taxes through August, year over year. So you've got blue is 2024, gray is 2021, purple is 2022, and orange is 2023. So you can see that you've had some months this year where you've been overperforming 2023. You had a few that were down. Everybody was down in January. There was the ice storm that kind of came through, so the entire state was kind of down. So I wouldn't look at January, but this is kind of the path. You generally follow a level of seasonality that has your August and September just sales down. For whatever reason, we can talk through some of that later, but that's your seasonality. You have some shoulder season opportunity in January, February, December that are areas where, if you're looking to capitalize, likely those are your opportunities to do so. We talked about this. This is just a bigger version of something earlier, and so we're done. We're done with this section for now, and we'll come back to talk